Now, I would like to call upon our next speaker for the day, Ms. Grace Dorothy Powell, VP Learning and Development 24/7.ai India, who shall be taking a session on ensuring learning relevance in a hybrid world, strategies and best practices. Ms. Grace Powell is a talent management specialist with 22 years of experience in IT consulting, ITES industries. She specializes in capability building, leadership development, driving high performance culture, succession planning, and talent mobility. A certified professional in the field of human resources from IIIM Bangalore, an accredited MBTI practitioner and a highly resourceful and professional coaches who uses NLP techniques to help others. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome Ms. Grace. Can we all welcome Ms. Grace now?
You all are able to hear me well? Am I loud enough? Great, okay. Pardon me because I have a slight injury in my knee and therefore won't be able to stand through the entire session. So would be sitting and talking. I hope you all don't mind. Thank you. All right. Okay. So quickly going into the topic about relevance of learning in the hybrid world, right? And I felt this comic, quite, when I went through this, it seemed quite relevant to the topic and I thought I should pick this up just to create a start on a lighter note. When it comes to relevance in everything that we do, right, not just about learning, especially looking at the generation that we deal with, right. I think as L&D professionals, today we have the most difficult task at hand because we have generations, over 4 to 5 generations that are there at the workplace in every single organization. And therefore, ensuring learning relevance for such varied workforce becomes that much more difficult. And to add a spin to that, you also have the disruption of catering to hybrid workforce. People, who are probably available at work sometimes or working from home, right? So today, especially in the next 20 minutes, I just want to pick up some of the key attributes which I thought could be helpful for each one of us to pick up in terms of what are some of the strategies we could pick up, as well as, what are some of the case studies. I just managed to pick up a couple of them which we could discuss. Moving on, in the first few slides, I've just captured some interesting insights. These are the data that's been captured is based on survey conducted by Gartner. So you have the survey results and data that are captured in the next few slides. First one, talking about the triple squeeze. We are definitely in the most difficult times, right, where a lot of aspects, there's rising inflation, there's expensive talent, at the same time there's also a global supply constraint. And to add to that, you have organizations, especially the senior executives of organizations, who are focusing more on workforce. The very reason why we all are here today is to, understand about what we need to do better in what we do, and that's primarily because the focus is more on workforce. There might be a lot of other priorities, but workforce takes precedence over the rest of the attributes. Moving on, also talking about shift in employee expectations, right? We did speak about the different generations that we cater to, and therefore you do have employees who probably pick up certain things and hold them close to their heart, and they are not convinced if you are not able to cater to some of those critical expectations that they have. And of course, also their ever-changing complexity in terms of the skill requirement in the workforce. So if you look at the skills that are relevant, since 2019, almost 33% of the skills, are changing, right? And this is only going to continue as we move in future. And if you look at, for an average role, nearly 5.4% of the skills are different. Therefore, like I think Coach Ram mentioned, you really cannot have a strategy that's going to work for the next 5 years. You can't even have a strategy that's going to work for one whole year. All we could be prepared is with interesting insights and certain guidelines which we think could work for us, right? Because it's an ever-changing industry that we work in. Now talking about the role of L&D, right? Given the background that the situation or the environment in which we are working is changing, the role of L&D is also changing. If you look at the, for over decades, we stuck to delivering formal learning, but then when pandemic came in, it kind of pushed us to a situation where our role moved away from delivering training to connecting people to learning, right? So we looked at all possible ways how could we ensure that people are able to get what they want from a learning and skill development perspective. But from there, today, if you see, the role of L&D has evolved to empower employee-led growth. So they're not saying you need to tell them what to do. You rather need to facilitate so that they are able to achieve their growth and career growth on their own journey, right? Now, another aspect is there are few aspects that definitely comes into the picture in this change. It is also how really you ensure that you cater to the different workforce that are there. And here, one of the aspects is you are in this digital transformation era catering to workforce who are both digital natives as well as digital immigrants, right? So when it comes to digital natives, they want everything at their fingertip, at the click of the mouse, right? At the same time, you have digital immigrants who probably did not grow up, experiencing these technologies, but today they need to learn, and most of them probably just looked at the computer for the very first time when they came into the organization. So given that background, what is important for us to look at is how do we really ensure relevance? And from a relevance perspective, the first aspect that we need to think about is how do we create a productive learning culture, right? Talking about productive learning culture, what is most important is your employees looking at the opportunities that you provide as learning opportunities, as relevant to what is required for them. Today, it's no longer enough to just have learning programs offered to people. What's important is whether you are preparing them for future roles or adjacent roles. So it's not just about building their skills for the current role, but preparing them for future roles. Talking about productive learning culture, I think an important aspect of that is, the learning ecosystem that you create. And in order to create the learning ecosystem, we definitely have to maneuver some of the challenges that we face day in and day out. What are some of those challenges? I've just captured few of them. This might not be a conclusive list, but the fact is I'm sure each one of y'all can resonate to some of these points when it comes to your organization. So how do we really maneuver through these challenges and still ensure that we create an elaborate learning ecosystem? The first aspect is how do you ensure that you create, clear those white spaces that are in between those learning ecosystems and create a link which is going to ensure that people are successfully able to learn effectively. Now talking about these links, first and foremost, the ability to apply and extract learning. You might have a lot of great modules that are available. if those modules are not relevant and people are not able to apply it in whatever they do day in and day out. And when we say applying, please remember, in a hybrid workforce, application of that learning is both synchronous as well as asynchronous. We did speak about that in one of our earlier sessions. Synchronous is how do you really behave when you have your fellow colleagues around you at workplace, and asynchronous is how do you really ensure that you deliver when you are in a disconnected environment. You are probably working at a different time versus your team which is working at a different time. And when it comes to application of these skills in both the environments, you really need to have that adaptability to be able to implement. Talking about permission to learn, it's not just enough you have the offerings, you also need to ensure that managers create that room for your individuals to ensure that they are able to learn, and of course also have quality connections. Today, if you see, coaching is kind of a massive aspect when it comes to development of individuals in our industry, and it's quite relevant especially in the hybrid environment. So looking at coaching, if you look at quality connection, I think coaching is one brilliant example of how individuals can connect with subject matter experts and have those relevant conversations. And the best part about coaching is it becomes an intimate connection, right? It's more one-on-one, and therefore you are pretty comfortable about discussing some of your vulnerabilities and then work towards solutions that could work for both of us. So now talking about the learning ecosystem, of course you definitely cannot miss the most important aspect of this, which is the technology ecosystem, the learning technology ecosystem. Now when it comes to technology, I know for a fact that I'm sure all of us, when the pandemic hit, we were forced to leverage technology. We could not just continue with the way we were continuing. There were quite a few organizations which did not even have a learning management system platform, struggled, and they picked up, whatever was available, whatever they could lay their hands on, and they started working with that. So if you look at technology, you do have LMS platforms. You also have LXP platforms, which helps creating employee experiences, which operates more with the help of AI. And the best part about LXP platform is the fact that it helps you to create an individual journey, right? And we spoke about having individual career paths. We spoke about how we cannot go with one-size-fit-all approach, and therefore your LXP platforms really supports that journey in terms of ensuring making it more relevant and individual to each one of us. And one other aspect which supports is your authoring tools. Authoring tools really helps you in creating content which is more which could be available at anywhere, anytime for people to pick up and learn. If you see the 4 different layers in this learning technology ecosystem, there is learner experience, learning delivery, training resources, and training operations. These are the 4 different layers. And all of these layers, if you see, are consciously moving from the left towards the right, which is from formal training to informal training. So when it comes to an hybrid world, what is going to work much more is your informal training, right? And which is exactly why you have Skillsoft, EdForce, quite a few service providers who are out there to help you. You could just go pick up any of those platforms and start your journey right then and there. Now talking about the learning technology ecosystem, how the preference of individuals are also changing compared to what it used to be before. The honest fact is today, if I call people to come and attend a classroom training, it's that much more difficult because people do not want to be confined into a room, sitting there for hours together. Even if you're serving the most exotic lunch that you could have, people are not really interested because things are changing. People want to, spend time more productively, and even without being confined in classrooms, we are still learning. And also the aspect of self-learning, which is more LMS based. So if you see this as a channel for learning is only going to increase as we move from here. So why are we discussing about these channels? What it talks about is how the shift in individuals' approach to learning is moving from ILT to actually from formal to informal learning, which is more experience based. And as mentioned earlier, if you see this slide, 82% of coaching and mentoring approach towards learning is going to take precedence over all the other approaches, right? So it's really important for us to see, as L&D function, are we looking at just offering bunch of courses which people can attend either in a classroom or on a LMS platform, or are we opening up our options that we give in terms of the ecosystem for people to have this experiential experience? I think that's what is more critical. And talking about the new dynamics, right? What exactly went wrong when the pandemic happened? Today, most of the organizations employ Gen Zs at the entry level. Now, what happened with the Gen Zs? They were the folks who were pretty much getting ready to come into the market in those years. And unfortunately, during those 2 or 3 years of pandemic, they were confined into doing things from their home. And in the bargain, what really went wrong? These folks missed the bus in preparing themselves from a soft skills perspective. So a survey that was conducted by Gartner really spoke about what are some of the key skills. So when they asked this question to employees, what they said is, while all the skills are important, some of the soft skills actually took precedence over rest of the other skills, which goes to say we need to have strategy which will help us in gearing up our employees with these soft skills. Now, talking about the strategies, the first and foremost aspect is you need to ensure that you have radical flexibility in the way you deliver soft skills, because soft skills are not like your hard skills which someone can just pick it up, right? It is more personal in nature. It is something that which is even defined as an individual's character, and therefore what you need to ensure. And also, while we all can resort to informal learning, more learning through virtual, but if you see this graph, it clearly calls out virtual learning in terms of application in your daily work is only 30% successful, while you have all the other channels which is going to make application much more successful. Therefore, you need to have a blended approach when it comes to delivering soft skill. An interesting case study, if you look at regarding the next strategy, which is time spent learning through reflection. I did mention about this in one of the conference that I spoke earlier, where it is important to ensure at the end of every workshop, whether you do it virtually or even if it is through LMS, you create small pockets of reflection activities, right? And this is very important. A case study where Akebia Therapeutics, when it came to training their leadership on awareness of how do they really overcome their fears when they are in ground reality. One of the aspects that they did is they spoke to the learners about the brain, how it processes, how when it comes to a stressful situation, it moves from, starting from fright to flight as a process. And what they actually did was, at the end of that particular session, they ensured that all the learners broke into smaller groups, and there they discussed about what are some of the fears that I have overcome in my personal life in the past. And when I experienced that situation, how did I respond to that situation? Now, what really helped in this reflection exercises, these individuals were able to realize that they've gone through more difficult situations in the past, and they were able to actually overcome those difficulties with ease, which really helped them to, the recall factor of they being able to remember this and address future fearful situations with ease. The next strategy, talking about ensuring that you instill a sense of purpose. I think, we saw that comic which spoke about, what am I going to learn from doing this manual labor work? He said, you'll learn patience. So I think what's important is for each one of them to be driven by purpose. One of TBS as an organization, it's a pharmaceutical organization which deals with drugs. What they did was they ensured that all their new hires, when they came in, the program encompasses an activity where these new hires get to speak to some of the patients who are taking TBS drugs and therefore getting better in their condition. So what happened when they spoke to these patients? They were able to realize what are some of the hardship that these patients were going through, and therefore they were able to relate to their situation. So this ensured that these new hires became actually quite successful when they went into delivering their roles in their job. What does this bring us to? We spoke about relevance, and this is pretty much the last point that I want to leave in each one of your mind. We all drive business impact. We all work a lot towards showcasing how learning is impacting business outcome, right? But in a hybrid world, there are two critical factors you need to ensure you are able to show your impact. One is your business. The second is the learners themselves. For you to be able to convince your learners, you need to ensure that you start tracking a critical metric, which is the learning relevance for every learner. So it is important that employee is able to assess their own preparedness when it comes to they being able to deliver the role that they are expected to deliver. So an important aspect that you definitely could pick up as a metric is employee skill preparedness metric. If you pick this up and work towards driving this, along with ensuring that you impact business, you also will be able to ensure that you show that relevance to your employees, which in turn is going to make your L&D efforts much more effective. That's pretty much what I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful words of yours. Now, I would like to call upon Mr. Jayesh KP, Deputy General Manager, HR Continental, to do the honors. So can we please welcome Mr. Jayesh on the dais?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, nice.
Can we put our hands once again for Ms. Grace Dorothy Powell?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so